試験監督者は音量及び室内の聞こえ具合を確認してください。2024年度第2回実用英語技能検定1級リスニングテスト。ただいまから1級リスニングテストを行います。これからお話しすることについて質問は受けませんので、よく注意して聞いてください。なお、リスニングテスト放送中に音飛びや騒音があった場合は、発生した問題のトラックの始めに戻し、やり直します。しかしながら、万が一、教室監督者が気づかない場合は、速やかに手を挙げてお知らせ願います。このテストでは、テストの方法と注意事項がすべて英語で放送されます。
The listening test for the Grade 1 examination is about to begin. Listen carefully to the directions. You will not be permitted to ask questions during the test. This test has 4 parts. All of the questions in these 4 parts are multiple choice questions. For each question, choose the best answer from among the 4 choices written in your test booklet. On your answer sheet, find the number of the question and mark your answer. You are permitted to take notes for every part of this listening test. Now, here are the directions for Part 1. In this part, you will hear 10 dialogues, number 1 through number 10. Each dialogue will be followed by 1 question. For each question, you will have 10 seconds to choose the best answer and mark your answer on your answer sheet. The dialogue and the question will be given only once.
Now, we will begin the Grade 1 listening test. Number 1.
Can I help you?
You repair leather goods here, right?
Some, yes. What exactly do you need repaired?
It's this briefcase. See how the stitching on the strap has come apart? I was wondering if that could be resewn.
Sure, we can do that. But I'm afraid the staining isn't something we can fix.
Oh, that's okay. It's been there for years. I'm more concerned about the bag's functionality than its appearance.
Okay, give me a few days and I'll take care of it.
Question. What does the man want the woman to do?
Number 2.
I didn't want to say anything in the marketing meeting, but I have some reservations about Trevor's suggestion.
You don't think printing our logo on t-shirts is a good idea?
Not really. We'd have to order so many different sizes, and we'd need a huge amount of stock. Printing on magnets or coffee mugs makes more sense.
You should have said something. I don't think anyone had really considered that.
Maybe I'll send out a follow-up email to everyone.
That's a good idea. Let's not wait until our next meeting to bring it up.
Question. What will the man do?
Number 3.
I can't believe Terrence got the district manager position. He's always late for work and he pushes most of his work off on others. I think you should have been given that job.
Thanks. Maybe I should have spent my time golfing with the owner of the company like Terrence did.
So, what are you going to do now? There's not a lot of room for advancement in this company.
No, there isn't. And I certainly don't want to work under Terrence. He'll be a terrible manager. I think it's time to update my resume.
Question. What does the woman imply?
Number 4.
Can you look over this lease agreement for me? I'm renting a big hall for an event I'm hosting, and I need some help with the legal terms before I sign it.
Sure, let me read it over in more detail. Right off the bat, though, I'll just say that I think the total amount they're charging you is a bit inflated.
Do you think I should try to get it adjusted?
Absolutely. It wouldn't be unreasonable to request a discount, especially since you're booking so far in advance.
Question. What does the woman suggest the man do?
Number 5.
Thanks for coming to repair our deck.
No problem. What happened anyway? We only built it for you last summer.
Well, a young man from the neighborhood broke the railing while he was trimming some of our trees. Luckily, he wasn't injured.
That's good. Or you might have been looking at a lawsuit.
That did occur to me. Your company does tree trimming too, right?
Yep. And all our workers are insured. It's nice to support your neighbors, but it's safer to use a contractor.
Question. What does the man imply?
Number 6.
I'm so looking forward to the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the McSheely Community Centre this weekend.
I don't think any of us realized what we were getting ourselves into when we decided to renovate this old church into a community center.
Seriously, it's been quite a process. Building a new facility from scratch would have been easier.
Yes, but this building has character. I'm glad we went the extra mile to preserve the old stained glass windows.
Definitely. And sections of the original brick walls.
Question. What were the speakers surprised about?
Number 7.
If there's another heat wave this summer, our warehouse workers are really going to suffer.
That's for sure. The company should invest in a new air conditioning system.
Do you think the executives will go for it? They're not very sympathetic toward the workers.
I'm going to present it as an issue that affects productivity. The new system would be a long-term investment that could boost profits.
They might just go for that.
Question. What do we learn about the company's executives?
Number 8.
I was just out sweeping the deck, and I noticed a rustling sound.
Yeah, I heard it yesterday. There's definitely some sort of animal living under there.
I haven't seen anything, but it could be a groundhog, or maybe a family of raccoons.
Do you think we need to have whatever it is removed?
If it's a groundhog, definitely. They move so much soil that structures can be damaged.
I hope it's just raccoons then. I'll get a pest control company to come out and take a look.
Question. What do the speakers imply about groundhogs?
Number 9.
What did you think about that lecture, Howard?
It was interesting, but I can't say I agree with the professor's view on censorship of the internet.
Really? I thought he had a good point. Freedom of speech is fine in principle, but I agree with him that there should be some regulations regarding what people can say online.
Personally, I think any kind of censorship violates a person's right to express their views, even if most people don't agree with them. And there's a danger that censorship can be used by governments to suppress criticism of their policies.
But what about hate speech or comments that are blatantly racist or sexist?
Of course, I don't condone prejudice or abusive comments, but I think that's a different issue. If opinions are supported by evidence and based on facts, people should be able to express them freely.
I see your point, but the problem these days is that people can post anything online without any risk of being held accountable.
Yes, and I think that's what needs to be addressed. There are slander laws relating to other types of media, so those can be applied to the internet as well.
I guess that makes sense.
Question. What is one thing the man implies?
Number 10.
Wow, that rehearsal was a catastrophe. Pierre, Jamal, do you have any ideas about how to fix this mess?
I don't know, Nadine. We have such an innovative script, but our leading characters' performances have been just dreadful so far. And there are only 5 days until opening night.
All 3 of the main actors were delivering their lines like complete amateurs. Do you have any idea what's going on with them, Jamal?
Apparently, there's some kind of backstage tension between Brianna and Craig. There was a huge shouting match in the dressing room yesterday afternoon. I don't know the details, though.
I heard that she was ridiculing Craig's performance to his face, and some of the other actors have said that Brianna has become extremely arrogant since she got the leading role.
That's for sure. Did you hear the way she talked down to Tom last week?
Yeah, he just stumbled over his lines a bit. She didn't have to humiliate him in front of everyone.
Pierre, do you think you could have a little chat with Brianna? We have to do something about this issue immediately, or else this production is going to be an absolute failure.
Question. What is Pierre likely to discuss with Brianna?
Here are the directions for Part 2. In this part, you will hear 5 passages, A through E. Each passage will be followed by 2 questions, number 11 through number 20. For each question, you will have 10 seconds to choose the best answer and mark your answer on your answer sheet. The passage and the questions will be given only once. Now, let's begin.
A. Non-compete contracts. Today, employees in a wide variety of professions are required to sign contracts in which they agree not to engage in competition with their former companies for a specific period of time after leaving their jobs. However, research has revealed that these legal agreements, known as non-compete contracts, can significantly suppress wages. This is because employees who might otherwise seek employment at firms where they could earn more feel they must stay in their current positions because of the contracts. Many firms argue that non-compete contracts give companies an incentive to provide enhanced training to workers. They allow the companies to be confident that their employees will not reveal confidential information to rivals in the future. However, some critics point out that various alternatives to non-compete contracts that would be less harmful to labor markets already exist. Most non-compete contracts are extremely broad. Therefore, replacing them with specific restrictions on the sharing of highly confidential information could be just as effective. This solution would be better for employees, though, because it would not entirely prohibit them from seeking employment with competitors or opening up their own firms. Such a change would encourage healthy competition while still protecting the rights of employers.
Questions. Number 11. What has research shown about non-compete contracts? Number 12. What do some critics suggest? B. E.K. Janaki Amol. In the early 20th century, a young Indian named E.K. Janaki Amol took a rare step for a woman at that time and chose to attend college. After graduating in botany, she won a scholarship to a U.S. university, where she specialized in the genetic composition of plants and hybrids between different species. Once back in India, Amal, along with other scientists, worked on creating sugarcane hybrids that had higher sucrose content and could be produced domestically. The project's success helped India reduce its reliance on imports from Indonesia for this important crop. One historian, however, believes that Amal was not given due credit for her significant contributions. Later in Amal's career, the Indian Prime Minister requested her expertise as part of efforts to boost India's agricultural industry. She tasked herself with surveying India's botanical diversity and improving scientists' knowledge of genetic studies. During this time, however, she was frustrated by the prejudice she faced from some male colleagues. She also became increasingly concerned about deforestation, as wide tracts of land were converted to the production of grains and other cereal crops. For the remainder of her life, she turned the spotlight on the plight of native flora and, fearing the consequences of their loss, lobbied for their protection.
Questions. Number 13. What does one historian suggest about E.K. Janaki Amal? Number 14. Why did Amal change the focus of her attention later in life?
C. Regenerative design. Throughout the past few decades, circular design has become a central concept within the creative sector. This philosophy is based on the elimination of waste and polluting processes in the creation of everything from buildings and furniture to clothing and artworks. In response to the urgency of climate change, however, designers have recently been embracing a concept that goes a step further. Rather than aiming to simply minimize environmental disturbances, this philosophy, called regenerative design, aims to actively contribute to ecosystem health and promote positive interactions between people and the natural environment. A key feature of regenerative design is that it can be implemented on both a large and a small scale. A building that captures rainwater and directs it into a depleted river is an example of regenerative design, as are the individual units that form its building blocks. These could include, for instance, cross-laminated timber panels, a wood product used in construction that captures and stores CO2. Some scholars note that joint efforts between designers and networks of stakeholders, including experts in ecology and community building, are essential for broadly implementing regenerative design. They also suggest that incorporating assessments of the financial value of natural environments into economic systems will be crucial for obtaining funding for regenerative design projects.
Questions. Number 15. What is implied about circular design? Number 16. What do some scholars say with regard to regenerative design?
D. All in jest. In medieval England, people known as jesters were hired by kings and queens to entertain their guests. Because of the way they have been portrayed in books and movies, people often think of jesters as clowns, but they actually had a varied role that required intelligence and diplomacy. As well as being entertainers, they usually had a political function. They were allowed to speak freely in royal courts, and they were relied on to use their wit to diffuse tension during difficult negotiations. It was also acceptable for them to criticize their masters, and their opinions were often taken seriously. Loyal jesters could be highly rewarded for their service. They generally received much higher pay than the average working person at the time, and some were even given land. However, the life of a jester was also risky. They were commonly asked to carry messages to opposing leaders, and they were not always treated well when those messages were unfavorable. They were also at the mercy of their masters. Jesters could easily upset the kings or queens they served by going too far with their criticism, which might result in them losing their positions or even their lives.
Questions. Number 17. What is one thing the speaker says about jesters? Number 18. What is true according to the speaker?
E. The Space Force. Created in 2019, the Space Force is the newest branch of the American military. One significant factor behind its creation was a serious potential vulnerability in America's defense capabilities. With its sophisticated weapons systems, high level of combat readiness, and tremendous budget, America's military might far surpasses that of any other nation. However, so reliant is it on satellites for communication, surveillance, and weapons system control that analysts fear that attacks on them have the potential to substantially diminish the capabilities of other branches of the armed services. It was felt that only a specialized military branch could adequately meet the demands of the current situation in space. While the United States is developing space weapons, it insists that the Space Force's primary roles are observation and the prevention of conflict. However, critics express concern about what is known as the security dilemma. According to this theory, states that attempt to enhance their military capabilities for defensive purposes risk intimidating other nations. Therefore, American attempts to gain dominance in space could provoke an arms race there. According to some, the Space Force's existence puts at risk the concept of space as a zone reserved for collaborative exploration and scientific research.
Questions. Number 19. What is one thing that the creators of the Space Force were worried about? Number 20. What is one thing that we learn about the security dilemma?
Here are the directions for Part 3. In this part, you will hear 5 passages, F through J. The passages represent real-life situations and may contain sound effects. Each passage will have one question, number 21 through number 25. Before each passage, you will have 10 seconds to read the situation and question written in your test booklet. After you hear the passage, you will have 10 seconds to choose the best answer and mark your answer on your answer sheet. The passage will be given only once. Now, let's begin.
F. You have 10 seconds to read the situation and question number 21.
So, according to government regulations, any passenger whose flight is delayed by 3 to 6 hours is legally entitled to $400. For 6 or more, it's $700. If you make a claim to the airline, it should be approved automatically. The airline's customer relations department is not accessible by telephone, so you need to file your compensation request online. If by some chance you should get rejected, you can take your case to a government agency that will settle the matter. But your claim sounds pretty black and white to me. Oh, one thing to beware of. is that sometimes the airline offers you a coupon for a discount on your next flight. Keep in mind, though, that the second you use the discount code on the coupon, you're giving up your right to any other compensation.
Now, mark your answer on your answer sheet.
G. You have 10 seconds to read the situation and question number 22.
Attention students! Due to the change in weather, the final after-school practice for the sports festival has been moved to the main gym. Listen carefully for details. Red team members, Ms. Miller will be in room 204 after the bell to hand out team jerseys and wristbands. Be sure to pick them up on your way to the gym. Yellow team members, Mr. Lee will be doing the same for your team between 5 and 6 o'clock. Don't forget to see him after practice. Blue team members, Coach Minetta wants to work on the opening ceremony choreography during the first half of today's practice. She'll be in the dance studio after the bell. Green team members, you'll do the same during the second half of practice. Finally, all competitors who haven't signed the event display poster in the entrance hall, be sure to do so this afternoon.
Now, mark your answer on your answer sheet.
H. You have 10 seconds to read the situation and question number 23.
Thank you for gathering at short notice. As you know, the company's recent performance has been lackluster. Sadly, 20 positions will have to be cut. We hope to achieve this goal mainly through voluntary resignations in R&D and sales. For those of you in those departments between the ages of 60 and 65, the company has formulated an attractive compensation package. If interested, please schedule a meeting with Human Resources. If you are in another department but have been considering a career move, we may be able to offer a severance package on a case-by-case basis. Please email me rather than your department manager, as I'd like to discuss options with you directly. If we cannot achieve the designated goal in the above ways, we will resort to forced resignations with lower compensation packages. At such a time, the HR manager will contact individuals via email to initiate that process.
Now, mark your answer on your answer sheet.
I. You have 10 seconds to read the situation and question number 24.
We have special offers on 4 streaming services. Sign up for any 2 services for the price of 1. The first is FlixTime, which streams movies in HD only and is focused on family-oriented Hollywood and Bollywood new releases, although it also streams some remastered European classics. Nile Plus is increasingly popular. It balances fun cartoons and anime with other programs that have a moral message or relay historical and cultural events in entertaining ways for kids. DriveStar has hard-hitting documentaries from across the globe, as well as a library of new and classic movies from South America and Europe. With the rise in the production of non-English movies, the choice is expanding rapidly. Finally, PairView delves into politics and history, often with a European focus. PairView offerings fall into the fiction category but are based on real-life events, so it's popular with adults and families with older children.
Now mark your answer on your answer sheet.
J. You have 10 seconds to read the situation and question number 25.
We have several options for camper vans and tents. For both, you can choose sites with or without electric outlets. For camper vans, we have two areas, woodland and lakeside. All sites in the woodland area have electricity, while the lakeside area has sites with and without electricity. Sites with electricity cost $80 per night, and those without cost $60 per night. As for tent sites, we have two areas, meadow and riverside. Only the meadow area has sites with electricity. Tent sites are $45 per night with electricity and $25 per night without. All of our sites are the same size, regardless of whether they're for camper vans or tents. The lakeside and meadow areas are close to the showers and toilets, so they're popular with families. Dogs are welcome, but we restrict them to the woodland and meadow areas.
Now mark your answer on your answer sheet.
Finally, here are the directions for Part 4. In this part, you will hear an interview. The interview will be followed by two questions, number 26 and number 27. For each question, you will have 10 seconds to choose the best answer and mark your answer on your answer sheet. The interview and the questions will be given only once.
This is an interview with Ashley Murray, a tour guide in Europe.
Ashley, welcome. Could you tell us what your work as a tour guide entails?
Absolutely. I still lead general introductory tours, but my main focus is what I call deep dives, which are specialized tours targeted at those with a scholarly interest in history or architecture.
So, what are some of the demands you face?
For me, it depends on the tour. On general tours, for example, you are giving visitors a basic historical and cultural canvas onto which they can then paint their own personal vacation experiences, whether that's eating gelato in a 15th century town square, taking a family photo on a picturesque bridge, or praying in an ancient temple. And thanks to the ubiquity of plane travel, you tend to be dealing with a greater diversity of people. You know, different generations, families, couples, varying cultural perspectives, and differing levels of knowledge regarding the town. Trying to weave a path through these elements that maintains everyone's interest takes considerable dexterity, especially if the tours last longer than a few hours, when people's thirst for knowledge begins to wane. There are many tricks of the trade, but one is to include a tale about a historical rogue, or scoundrel, or weave in a story about a titanic battle. While we rightly frown upon conflict and outrageous behavior, people still love all the nitty-gritty and political machinations surrounding such historical events.
Interesting. Why did you decide to focus mainly on the more specialized tours? Are they more lucrative?
I can honestly say I would have chosen another career had I wanted to be rich. The fact is, I've always been academically oriented, and for the deep dives, the participants come armed with knowledge and passion, so they're fully prepared for and expect things to get pretty detailed. As such, I have to bring my A game in terms of preparation. I may be a glutton for punishment, but that's the kind of pressure I enjoy. Sometimes, though, a question will stump you. You can't fob people off with something like, "Oh, I think that building was destroyed during a bombing raid sometime in the war." One of the other participants may know the exact date or cause of the destruction, so it's better to put your hands up and admit it when you're not sure, then turn it into a discussion or learning point. Trying to bluff your way through is not the answer.
Good advice for many careers, perhaps. So, do you think most tourists appreciate the amount of work that goes into producing a satisfying tour?
What tourists see is just the tip of the iceberg, the smile, the passion, and what have you. But beneath the surface, in Europe, there's a federation that works with local guide associations to advocate for best practices and ensure that standardized, high-quality services are offered to the stakeholders. In this case, the visitors. Under the auspices of a local association, would-be guides undertake a series of tests in order to become accredited. The associations and federation then offer ongoing support in a number of ways, such as keeping us abreast of the latest European tourism regulations, or offering courses to upgrade our skills, such as best practices for guiding in sacred sites, guiding people with learning difficulties, learning about sustainable tourism, and so on. And it's not simply one-sided. The ultimate focus is the tourist's satisfaction. The Federation is there to hold the associations and guides to account in the case of shortfalls or official complaints.
Well, that was fascinating. Thank you, Ashley.
My pleasure.
Questions. Number 26. What is one challenge Ashley says he faces when leading general tours? Number 27. Why did Ashley decide to focus on specialist tours?
Your time is up. Stop writing and wait quietly until the answer sheets have been collected.
では、時間です。筆記用具を置いて答えの記入をやめてください。これにて試験終了となります。公正なる試験実施にご協力いただきありがとうございました。質問がある方は直ちに試験監督者にお申し出ください。試験監督者に連絡いたします。これより最終の受験者数を確認してください。その後、回答用紙を回収し、枚数の確認を行ってください。なお、問題冊子は回収しません。受験者数と回答用紙の枚数の一致を確認してから解散の指示を出してください。受験者の皆さんは身の回りをよく点検し、忘れ物がないように注意してください。受験者の皆さんが退出するときは別の教室が試験中の場合もありますので、声を出さず会場出口まで静かに退出してください。それでは解散の指示を出すまで静かにお待ちください。